The reality is that regardless of how good you are, how pretty you are, how much work you put into it, who collaborated on it with you, none of that matters because people don't have to like you. Hey everybody, it's Sharmel. Welcome back to Locs Lux Lifestyle. Welcome back to another video. So if you enjoy loc content, lifestyle content, and self-help and self-development content, then make sure to hit that subscribe button because I do a little bit of all of that. So today I am back with another chit chat video, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about dealing with criticism. So let's get into it.
As the sun shines on all of my glory, my flaws don't look so bad at all. What was I so afraid of?
So last year I did a similar chit chat video where I talked about criticism. However, I approached it from the standpoint of just being overly sensitive, and how if you are in a place where you're trying to elevate, to grow, to move forward in your life, then you have to get in control of your emotions. However, in today's video, I kind of wanted to take a different approach to dealing with criticism. So criticism is not something that I think I deal with a lot per se, because I tell you guys all the time, I'm very chill, laid back. I don't tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve. Therefore, it's hard for people to get up under my skin. And if they do, I don't really like giving people the satisfaction of knowing they got under my skin. So it's not that I don't deal with criticism per se, but I don't feel like I deal with a lot of it constantly. However, with these last few months, with my loc extensions, I have found myself dealing with a little more like controversy and criticism in a way that I've never really experienced before. And in general, being just like a public figure, putting out public content, opening yourself up to the public and public opinions, I really had to kind of take a step back, you know, have some talks with myself and figure out how to really like navigate criticism from a practical standpoint, especially if this is something that I'm going to continue to do. And I think it's easy for people to just be like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, when people say negative things, you know, just keep moving forward. Don't let it get to you. But no, the reality is that words do hurt sometimes. On top of that, we're also in this whole social media era where people get real bold on the internet, behind anonymous profiles. And it's one thing to deal with criticism from somebody you know, somebody you have a personal relationship with. That's one instance, but we also have to take into account that we are in a time where people thrive off of likes and notoriety, and it's like people will watch things with the pure intention to comment something negative on it. They want to get the best joke off. They want to kiki so they can get a pinned comment. I feel like it's easy to say ignore these type of things until you're minding your business and you find yourself at the wrong end of the joke. I grew up in the sticks and stones may break my bones, the words will never hurt me era, and that may be a reason why I don't always wear my emotions on my sleeves. But at the end of the day, words hurt. Like, I don't care how tough you are. Even if words don't hurt you physically, they definitely play with your mind. They have the potential to affect your perception. They have the potential to affect the way that you view yourself and view the world. So yes, I definitely want to just take a dive into dealing with criticism because this is something that I've definitely been working through lately. Again, I haven't dealt with like a huge amount of criticism. However, with my platform, I do plan to continue to put out public content, and I'm just, you know, figuring out healthy ways to navigate that space while also protecting my feelings and you know, just creating a safe space for myself and others as well. So let's get into these talks. So first and foremost, I think it's very important to acknowledge that everyone doesn't have to like you. Everyone does not have to like whatever work you put out, whatever it may be, whether it's something that you do, whether it's just who you are. Everyone will not and they do not have to like you. And I feel like that's something that we say, but we rarely really digest that. We aren't really comfortable with what that looks like in real life. So in an ideal world, we should be able to respect others who have different opinions, just people who are different, right? We should be able to respect each other's differences. However, even with respecting them doesn't mean that people will still like you. And the reason I say we're not really comfortable with this is because deep down, although we may say like everyone doesn't have to like me, I feel like a lot of us think that just because we may be nice, we may be generous, we may be kind, that people should like us. People are entitled to like us because of the things that we offer. But even then, that's still not true. People do not have to like you. And once you understand that people don't have to like you, they don't have to like your work, they don't have to like your videos, they don't have to like your content, they don't have to like anything about you. Once you're comfortable with that, it makes dealing with criticism a lot easier. Whether we want to agree with it, acknowledge it or not, a lot of us are very entitled, and we feel like just because we do something with good intentions that people should like it. Just because we worked hard on something that people should like it. And so when we operate from that mindset, when we're always entitled to somebody liking something because we feel like they should, then when they don't, our feelings get hurt and we get upset, when really the reality is that regardless of how good you are, how pretty you are, how much work you put into it, who collaborated on it with you, none of that matters because people don't have to like you. And that's something that I try to get more and more comfortable with every day, especially as I focus on building my platform, expanding my content and things like that. I always have to remind myself, I'm doing this, but at the end of the day, people are not entitled to like what I do. However, the beauty in understanding that some people will not like you, everyone is not for you, in that process you are able to find your community. And once you understand who is for you and who is not for you, you're able to put more effort and more energy towards the things that are for you and towards the people that are for you. But at the end of the day, nobody has to like you. And once you understand that, it's hard for people to hurt your feelings, because even if they say something, it's like, well, you don't have to like me anyway, so okay. But yes, people don't have to like. The next thing I want to talk about is oversharing. We are in this social media era, right? I feel like sharing and oversharing has become very normalized. Like literally people wake up, they tweet, I just woke up. You know, with vlogs and things like that, we're constantly showing people the behind the scenes and what we do. We have niches for it with story times. Like, we're just so used to sharing our personal business. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that per se. There's nothing wrong with sharing your experiences. However, at the end of the day, we are all responsible for protecting ourselves. You're responsible for protecting you. I'm responsible for protecting me. You can't get mad at people forming an opinion, whether it's good or bad, off of information that you volunteered. We often volunteer unnecessary details and then get mad when people have opinions about the details that we shared. Be mindful of what you share, how much you share, who you share it with. My usual rule of thumb is if somebody says something negative about this, if it's gonna hurt my feelings, then I either need to not say it, or I need to figure out a way to say it that doesn't involve as much detail or where it won't hurt me. Also, who are you sharing things with? Just like I said previously, understanding who is and who isn't for you. Everything you say is not intended for everybody. You know, there's things that I can share with my friends that I may not speak about with my mom, and vice versa. There's things that I may talk about with my mom that I may not talk about with my peers. And I don't withhold certain information from certain individuals because they're bad people or because I don't trust them. You know, I may be looking for a certain response and I know that this person will give me that response, or I may be looking to speak about something a bit more unfiltered and I know that this person is comfortable with talking about things in an unfiltered way. And so it's up to you to navigate like who you can and cannot share things with. And on top of deciding who to share things with, it's also important to know when to share things. For example, we all have different dreams, aspirations, goals, and things like that. Sometimes we share things prematurely, and when we don't get the response that we wanted, we get mad at that individual for saying whatever it is that they said about our dreams or our goals. But the reality is that it wasn't the time to share those things with that person. In the beginning stages, when you're super excited and you want to share it, that's not always the right time to share it, because usually you're a little more sensitive to it at that point. You definitely have to keep your eyes open. You have to know who you're talking to, and you have to understand when it is and when it isn't a good time to share things. And that will honestly prevent you from dealing with a lot of like unnecessary conflict and criticism. The next thing I want to talk about is intention. Just how we've gotten super comfortable with oversharing so casually, we have also gotten very careless in how we share information and how we speak and how we just move throughout this society. I don't think that everything you say, everything you do has to have like some super deep underlining meaning or purpose. However, when you move and you speak and you act with a little more intention, it definitely filters what you say, when you say it, and how you say it. Many of us speak without thinking. We respond without thinking. We just, like I said, we're just very careless as a society. And the reality is, if you don't have an intention for what you do and an expectation for what you do, then once you speak, once you act, once you put out whatever it is that you put into this world, you leave the door open for people to form their own opinions, create their own narrative. And once people create their own narrative, like it's a domino effect. And that may not always be beneficial towards you, or it may not always feel good towards you, because you'll be met with different opinions. So moving with intention, I feel like it just kind of keeps your checks and balances into place. You don't speak or do things without thinking about it. And don't get me wrong, that will not stop people from forming their own opinion. Like, people will always form their own opinion about things. However, if I have an intention for something, I have a certain expectation from that intention. And so that in between space when I'm moving and I'm speaking and I'm working, I feel like I articulate my intention better, because I'm expecting a certain outcome from what I say or what I do. And when you're more articulate about what you say and what you do, is usually received in a better fashion, so that people understand your intention for whatever it is that you're saying. Whether they agree with it or not, they understand the purpose and the intention behind it. So again, I'm not saying that you have to have like some super deep underlining meaning for everything you say. However, when you do speak, especially in a public setting, especially in a public space like social media, don't just do and say anything. Once you understand the purpose for things that you do, even if you're met with criticism or they don't meet your full expectations, knowing that I was operating in my purpose in that moment, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But it's really easy to be hurt by criticism when you're not operating with purpose and intention. We were just moving carelessly, and in return, we got a careless response. And then the next thing is that you want to give yourself space to deal with criticism. Like I mentioned in my first point, people don't have to like you. And there are times where you can be doing everything right and people still won't like you. So being met with that criticism still hurts. So, you know, you acknowledge that people don't have to like you, but you can still acknowledge that whatever was said or done, it hurts you. I'm not saying that you have to do it in that moment, but it is important that you do find a space where you can acknowledge those feelings, because you don't want them to harbor and fester and create resentment, or either stop you from pursuing whatever it is that you want to pursue. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that something hurts your feelings, and if anything, it helps you put in place better boundaries going forward. So if I share something and I don't get the response that I was expecting, then I know going forward, this is information that I need to be careful how I share, because I don't want to get my feelings hurt. Also make sure to give yourself space to work through those feelings. Acknowledge what hurt you, why it hurt you. Sometimes things hurt because there's truth in it. Sometimes things hurt because it isn't any truth in it, and we don't like people just creating blatant lies about us. Acknowledging the hurt and getting to the root of why it hurt you is always going to be helpful in the long run. And then lastly, it's important to understand that criticism does not invalidate your experience. It doesn't invalidate you as a person, and it also doesn't devalue you. I think one of the reasons some people have a hard time dealing with criticism, whether it's like malicious or whether it's constructive criticism, is because we feel like once somebody criticizes something about us, that it devalues us, and that's not the truth. And if anything, get comfortable with dealing with criticism. And I'm not saying that you should move and operate and expect criticism all the time, but also understand that not all criticism is meant to hurt you. A lot of the times when we do experience criticism, there's a level of growth that comes out of that. There's something that we learn out of that. There's a correction that happens out of that. And whether we like it or not, we don't always get to choose who and what God uses to elevate us, what he uses to correct us, what he uses for character building in us. And sometimes it's that criticism. It's the things that we don't like to hear about ourselves, or we don't like to hear about our work. But sometimes those things that we don't like to hear will help us in the long run. It'll help us be better overall. So yeah, that's pretty much it for all that I have to say. Overall, I think as a whole, we can be a lot kinder, a lot nicer to people. As a whole, we need to offer more grace and compassion to others. But at the end of the day, it's still the real world, and we cannot control what people say. We can't control what people think about us. However, we can control how we navigate these different spaces and how we deal with the criticism that we may face. So yes, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any helpful tips that you would like to add to this conversation, definitely leave them down below. Follow me on Instagram, Snatched by Sharmel, and I will see you all in my next video.